Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our main event! Hosted by Eric McMahon, it's Cageside with John Morgan!
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. You guessed it right, I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Follow me on Twitter, _MacLife. A lot to talk about today. Plus, we're only a couple weeks away from the showstopper, the headline that is John Jones coming back to reclaim not his light heavyweight championship, but the heavyweight championship of the world. But I digress. Let me bring in the man who knows everything about all things MMA. You could find those articles on Sports Illustrated, The Underground. You can find mixedmartialarts.com. Plus, he's got a hell of a Twitter. John Morgan, what's up, pal?
Hey, man, I'm glad to be back in action. This past weekend, we had a couple things to talk about. There were a couple moments that were interesting. Not the greatest UFC card of all time, but, still some great things happening. And as you said, the schedule is filled up this week, and we're only 2 weeks away from the big pay-per-view, the return of John Jones. So, we'll get past this last weekend and move forward.
Now, you say only a little things happen. Wasn't you're okay? Preference it. It wasn't the greatest fight night card, okay? But Erin, we have to talk about Erin
have to
Blanchfield, right? So I preference this in our behind the curtain. Everybody, me and John will get on for a couple of minutes. We'll go over the show, get some thoughts out there in the ether to spawn discussion while we do it on air. And Erin Blanchfield, she takes out former champion Jessica Andrade, which is freaking huge step up in competition. And I made the point off air. I said, this is who the media thought Maycee Barber was going to be.
And I think that's a great point. Just 23 years old. I mean, absolutely so young. And that's what made this fight intriguing. And you're right. The card itself wasn't, amazing, but the main event really was. I was, really intriguing because it was this point of here's a former champ versus this up-and-coming prospect that we know is good. It's not that we didn't think Erin Blanchfield was good. We just didn't know how good she was. At 23 years old, I feel like with most fighters, when they're kind of on this rise, they get to a level where they find out, okay, wait a minute, I'm not quite there yet. Now I need to know where I go from there. And I thought this might be that moment for Erin Blanchfield. Instead, she stood in the pocket and traded with Jessica Andrade. Early takedowns didn't work, so she's like, all right, well, I guess we're going to have to swing this out a little bit. Didn't get overwhelmed there. Admitted she got hit more than she wanted to, but didn't look like a fish out of water in there. I mean, she was doing okay in the striking department, but then second round, she hits that inside trip. I mean, you're a fan of grappling like myself. Obviously, you're a practitioner. The smoothness at which she went to side control, and then the smoothness at which she took the back and the choke simultaneously, locked it up. Jessica had no chance to get out of there, and that was a statement win for Erin Blanchfield. And then to get on the mic afterwards and say, oh, by the way, UFC 285, Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, they're fighting for the title. How about you just line me up for the winner? I love it. I don't know if it'll happen, but seizing the moment, seizing the opportunity.
I almost don't know how it doesn't happen after dispatching, Jessica Andrade like that. Now, I want to take a step back because Erin Blanchfield, to us, she's on our radar, right? But not a lot of people didn't know who she was. Now, I'll tell you this. I'm a huge fan of Miranda Maverick, right? And she ran through her. Maycee Barber and Maverick had this amazing fight. And I'm just a big fan of, because she's a heavy pressure, always coming forward, relentlessness. I love those type of fighters. And Blanchfield toyed with her. So I knew at that point, that was 2 fights ago, how good Blanchfield really was. But watching this fight as the intros, it really looked like Blanchfield. I'm like, oh my, she looks a little overwhelmed right now. Main event spot, former champion. And then right out the gate, she comes in and starts piecing up. She starts piecing up Andrade. I mean, then granted, it spawned the former champ to start throwing haymakers that kind of clipped her here and there, never hurt her. But she was piecing her up on the feet, and everybody said she needs to get to this ground immediately. She's like, I'm going to show you. She did.
No, it was impressive to say the least. That first round was very competitive. I thought Jessica probably won the opening round, but if you go back and look at the cards, Erin Blanchfield won that on 2 of the 3 judges' cards. So that shows you how competitive it was.
I had Blanchfield. I had
Yeah.
Erin in the first round.
Super close, right? And that just goes to show you, because if you notice, she went in and shot for the takedown right away, because I think, look, she is a ground specialist, and that's where she does her best work, as she clearly showed. But Jessica was able to defend a couple takedowns early on, and I thought, uh-oh, this might be a long night. This is the night Erin's going to find out what happens. But you're right. I mean, it was very competitive. Like I said, I have no problem with it being scored the other way. So, she took a couple shots, but she was using her range well. She was in there trading. And then, you get to come out for round 2 and you get to try it again. And that time she hit the inside trip. And you're right. I think, to me, I was a little worried because, her last performance against Molly McCann was so dominant. But that, to me, was just kind of a bad stylistic matchup for Molly McCann. That just never looked good on paper. The odds indicated. And I thought maybe people were hyping her a little too much. That Miranda Maverick win, it was a statement win for sure, because we know how tough Miranda Maverick is, but still early in her career as well. So I don't know. I guess, not that she hadn't proved anything, but I still looked at it as potential. Now she delivered. It's not potential anymore. It's right now.
So let's go back to where we started. She said, line me up for the winner. Does this put her in that position? Now, UFC has had the past preferences to maybe throw people into a spot that they aren't ready for yet. And we kind of talked about that on past episodes. My fear is that could come to fruition here, because Shevchenko is next level serial killer-esque. But who else in this division that has got that hype train right now that could go up against a winner of, coming into this, whoever wins in the co-main event of this John Jones fight?
Look, you're right about that. Now, look, Valentina Shevchenko, she's got a competitive matchup with Alexa Grasso, but a lot of people are pointing to maybe Shevchenko's decline a little bit because of her performance against Tyler Santos. I would caution to say that. I know she had some injuries that she didn't really want to talk about coming into it, and I think those really affected her performance, but she still won. Now, a couple things you touched on there, the hype. There's certainly the hype behind Erin Blanchfield right now, right? She delivered in a main event against a former champ, and I said it going in. Remember, that fight was supposed to be Erin Blanchfield versus Tyler Santos. Santos had to back out. Jessica Andrade comes in. And I said, if she wins this, I think it's a bigger statement. Not that it's necessarily a tougher fight or a bigger match, but Tyler Santos just doesn't have that much hype around her name. So Blanchfield has the hype, and she has the timing because the fights are only going to be 2 weeks apart. So it could work out for her. But I would just say, caution a little bit. You still have Tyler Santos in there, who, to be honest with you, I thought that fight between Tyler Santos and Valentina Shevchenko was so close that Santos deserved an immediate rematch anyway. That didn't happen. Then she had to withdraw. We still don't know the exact reasonings for why she had to withdraw. We don't know the full story there yet. So who knows? She may not be available for a while. You still do have Manon Fiorot as well, who's the number 1 contender coming out of France. She deserves that opportunity as well. So I think what it might depend on is, where do they need a title fight to happen? If they need, if they've got a European pay-per-view maybe later in the year, then the obvious choice is you go with Fiorot. I mean, that stuff all goes into promoting, right? Is to who deserves it. But if Blanchfield was called and tapped for a title shot right now, I don't think you'd hear too many people complaining about it, outside Tyler Santos and Manon Fiorot, of course.
Of course, right? Who doesn't want to fight for the strap? That's why the reason everybody's in this game. So, not really much to break down on that undercard there. I'm tremendously excited for next week's card. Now, maybe not the card, but the main event, right? We got Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann. Krylov 6th in the UFC rankings. Ryan Spann 8th in the light heavyweight rankings. As you know, by anybody listening to this podcast, I've been big on Ryan Spann for a while now. I literally think he's got the body frame, he's got the striking ability, he's got the power, and what a lot of people don't know is he's got the chops on the ground. I mean, he took Drysdale to a decision in an LFA fight, which was amazing. Drysdale, former world champion and one of the best jiu-jitsu guys to ever walk this earth. Ryan Spann hung with him on the ground. So I don't really want to talk about Krylov right now. I'm kind of on this Ryan Spann hype train. Does a win over the 6th ranked UFC fighter in the light heavyweight division push him up that much with the run that he's been on, that now he is on the cusp with a victory this weekend?
I think so. I think especially if he continued the run of form that he's had right now. I mean, you look at the last 2 performances, especially, he had some struggles. He lost to Johnny Walker. He lost to Anthony Smith. He's been kind of this up and down guy, right? Where it's like you see the potential there. You hear those around him saying, watch my guy, Ryan Spann, but then he would have those setbacks that kind of slowed him down a little bit. But the last 2 performances, first round victories over Dominic Reyes and Ian Cutelaba. I mean, those are tough dudes to say the least. And he took them out, dispatched of them in the first round. That's big. If he could come out and do something like that, which will not be easy against Nikita Krylov. Nikita's been around. He's a tough dude. He's fought the best of the best as well. He's got a ton of experience. So that's not an easy thing to do. A victory of any kind will be important to keep him moving up the ranks. But if he could come out and make some kind of a statement in the main event here, absolutely. I mean, you start looking, there's not a lot of names in front of him in the rankings, and a lot of them have been around for a while, so you're looking for some fresh contenders sometimes. You got those same guys over and over and over. Sometimes you want to get some new names in there. So this is a big moment in Ryan Spann's career, and I'm excited for this main event as well.
And he passes the eye test. Good Lord, this man is huge at 205. And man, I've actually just been kind of following his career. Like, why I'm kind of hype on Ryan Spann is, I've cross-trained with him before, believe it or not. Like, he has a connection to Memphis. He came into the gym for an open mat one day. I was like, who is this freak? You know what I mean? I got to roll with him. It was cool. I'm like, okay, this guy's legit as they come. Come to find out, then like 2 weeks later, I'm seeing him fight Robert Drysdale on LFA. I was like, holy smokes. And so I just became a fan of him. But the one thing that I want to note here is something he said in his post-fight interview when he knocked off Dominic Reyes and when he knocked his head off, is he said, this is the first time I've ever trained for a fight. Like I ever had a fight camp. He'd come in and he trained, but nothing specific. He was never dedicated to, his words, not mine, never ultra dedicated to a fight camp. Now he is, and we see the results of his last 2 fights.
That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary if he got to that point. If he got to, top 10 rank in the UFC without really being dedicated, without really, giving it all for a fight camp, and now he's able to do that, you wonder what kind of leaps and bounds he can make. Of course, as you said, that 6'5" frame. I mean, you can't teach height, right? I mean, that's a big frame in there. And training out of Fortis MMA, obviously, Saif Saud and the wonderful team out there. There's a lot of opportunity for him. He's coming in as a dog here. He's actually a slight underdog in the matchup, and I can understand why. I mean, Nikita Krylov, again, saying that he's been around for a long time. He's got some experience in the game. He's fought the best of the best. But this is a huge opportunity for Ryan Spann.
I am looking forward to this fight. Just off of, like we talked about, Blanchfield's potential. Now, Ryan Spann a little longer in the tooth, but just this frame, his size, his chops everywhere. The potential is there for this man. So looking forward to seeing what will happen this week. UFC Fight Night in the Apex Center. I'm pretty sure John Morgan is going to be there. Am I correct?
I will be there this week. Yeah, absolutely looking forward to it. I mean, obviously, that's a big main event. Andre Muniz versus Brendan Allen, stylistically, for you grappling, aficionados out there like ourselves. That's going to be a fun fight. And the return of Tatiana Suarez. I'm excited to see that. She looked to me, before she started having some serious injury issues, looked to me like all the part of future champion. So we'll see. She's been, working her way back and is returning after a couple years away. So excited for that one. So yeah, should be a fun card. Up and down it. I think this one on paper looks I mean, you never know until the fights happen. Last week's card on paper didn't look great, and unfortunately, we did have some matchups play out that kind of slowed the night down. There are some high spots, especially that main event, but this one, top to bottom on paper, looks like a little bit more intriguing matchups.
And as the dork I am, I'm gonna watch them all anyway. So
of course,
that's what I do.
Regardless.
Yeah, my wife loves it at times. Babe, I'm working right now.
Yeah, you're like, sure you are. Sure you are.
Yeah. Well, she said you were doing this before you had that damn show.
So true.
Well, now I have to. And
now
I
have
get
a
to
reason.
I get to expense my pay-per-views now.
Even better.
Cha-ching. So the beauty of social media is you start hearing controversy where there may or may not be controversy, right? Started breaking over the weekend. Conor McGregor kind of shaking things up. As everybody knows, him and Michael Chandler are going to be the coaches on the upcoming Ultimate Fighter, which may or may not be already starting to film right now. It is?
Yeah, it's
okay,
filming right now.
It's starting to film right now. Now, anybody knows the process. Fighters come in, they interview, they kind of try out, they do a lot of things. You make the show, right? Great. Everybody's happened. They do have reserves in the balance in case people don't pass physicals or whatnot. I've known of people who have been on the reserve spot, known a couple of people that were on the show. But the controversy here, according to some people, is that Conor McGregor took spots, 3 in particular, from people who should have rightly been on the show because he wanted to bring in his buddies or his hand-picked guys. Now, a lot of people are saying, crying foul, saying that's not fair. And you know what? I'm going to tell you my opinion right now, John Morgan. Such is life. If you can't, if I'm friends with Conor McGregor, I'm milking it. If I am Conor McGregor, I am using it to help my friends, to give them that opportunity. I mean, he did it with, oh gosh, who's the one he just got in a lawsuit with?
Artem Lobov.
He did it with Lobov on the first time he was coaching. Lobov lost his prelim fight to get into the house. He brought him back anyways. I mean, what say you? If you're Conor or you're Conor's friends, you use it. It's life. Life is about connections, right?
Yeah, I mean, you hate to say it because of the fighters that maybe didn't get to go in there. Now, I've heard there's more to the story, and so we got to let it all play out. But to your point, if this is exactly the way it went down, as it was reported, that Conor McGregor used his power to remove 3 fighters to put in his friends, I mean, what's the point of gaining leverage in life if you don't use it to help those around you? That's just the reality. Yeah, you said it. You said it perfect. Such is life. That's the reality. It's not what you know. It's who you know. It's these relationships. You make things happen. Conor McGregor, the biggest star the sport has ever seen, he wields that kind of power to come in and say, hey, wait a minute. You want a month of my time to come in here and be on your show to help promote this for ESPN? Well, guess what? I want my guys in here with me. How about that? I mean, that's just what you do. I hate to say it now. Let me say at the same time, I feel terrible for those athletes. Again, if that's the way it went down, I feel terrible for those 3 that weren't selected. I had heard that there were more bodies in Las Vegas than they actually had spots on the show. Now, I don't know what the full truth on this is just yet because, unfortunately, when anything is tied to that show, people are really limited in what they can say because there's non-disclosure agreements and things like that come along with the contract. So I don't know if it'll take until the filming is done till we find out exactly what happened. But I had heard there were more bodies and there were actually going to be slots on the show. So maybe it didn't exactly go down like that. But if it did, I feel terrible for those 3 athletes because I know they were right on the cusp of maybe having this opportunity. But maybe it turns into something better. And those 3 athletes, the UFC invites them onto the Contender Series, this summer, which, to be honest with you, is kind of a faster route to get into the UFC than even being on the Ultimate Fighter. So it could be, a nice end to the story. You understand the frustration, but all said, I'm not going to judge Conor McGregor. I'll judge Conor McGregor for some things that he does from time to time because he's made some mistakes. This, to me, isn't one of them.
And as you said, there's more fighters than there are spots. I mean, I can speak to that. I guess not firsthand, secondhand. Good friend of mine, the Unknown Element, Trevor Wallace. You've actually commentated some of his fights, CFFC. Big heavyweight dude, right? Knocks people out. He got called for the Ultimate Fighter. He went out there, flew out. He had some interviews. Guess what? Didn't make it. He didn't even get to try out. There was more spots. And then he was on a waiting list. Had to stay in Vegas a couple extra days just in a hotel just to see if somebody didn't pass their physical or somebody didn't do this. So if we're going to, I guess, armchair quarterback, what we think probably could have happened is Conor McGregor came out with his guys saying, I want these guys on the show. They were going to get on regardless, no matter if they had these other 3 people there. It could have been very easily been a scenario where they bring in 15 guys for 10 spots and then they do interviews. And then now people are crying foul because 3 guys came with Conor McGregor. I very easily see that's the way it went down. And I see no problem with that other than the fact that, I'm sure these guys are bummed. And then in some way, I bet you Dana White may make up for it in the future because he's known to do things like that.
It definitely is. The matchmakers know. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the production team has a big role in selecting who gets on there, right? Because they want people that are going to make good television. I mean, the stories over the years of like guys like Frankie Edgar not making tough and stuff. There's these stories along the way where incredible fighters have been passed over because of people that, weren't picked by the production team. But the matchmakers still know the names, right? I mean, Sean and Mick are still aware of who was there. And if they were there, if you were in the pool of athletes that they were at least considering worthy of being in the UFC, they still know your name. They still know your manager. You might get that call to Contender Series. You might get that short notice call up for a late replacement that they need. So while I can imagine that, those 3 athletes and anybody else that didn't make the shows is probably bummed out and frustrated as hell, I would say, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Stay ready. Stay in the gym. because your name is clearly on the radar, and there might be some opportunities coming your way real soon.
Shifting gears from UFC for a minute. Don't worry, we're going to get back to that because we do got to talk about the juggernaut that's in the future. But Bellator, Dublin, Ireland. We always know Dublin, Ireland, and Bellator. They just, with this amphitheater type setup, it's awesome. The crowd is electric. They always have somebody from their home countrymen headlining the card. Not this time. And I'm a little confused why. And coming up, Amasov versus Storley. Storley, as we know, last time in Ireland, this was in London. He knocked off MVP, very grinding, heavy wrestling type thing. Little weird on why they would put him in the main event spot in a Dublin, Ireland card, but they did. Do you think this is going to hurt any enthusiasm out there in Dublin because they love their MMA?
I mean, listen, you still got some Irish fighters on the card, and they're going to bring – I mean, you're so right about that crowd. That 3-arena setup, first of all, the Irish fans are just as passionate as can be, but you're right, the way that arena is set up, all the crowd is on one side, so they're all packed together, amphitheater style, like you said.
It's kind of like the Horseshoe Tunica Casino for CFFC.
Just like it, baby. Just like it. It's an incredible scene. And I think the Irish will still bring it. I mean, you still got, like I said, Peter Queeley's on the main card. Sinead Kavanaugh's there as well. So, listen, you've got some athletes on there that are going to bring the energy. The main event, not so. But it's also a big main event. I mean, it's a unification fight of the title, right? I mean, you've got the champ in Amasov. You got the interim champ in Storley. Stylistically, we'll see how it plays out. It might not necessarily be the most exciting fight, but I like the fact that they're bringing championship matchups. I'm sure Bellator crowd feels that way too. Like, hey, if we're going to go to a show, give us some big names, give us some people that we stand. It's such a balance you have to find as a promoter sometimes, and I've seen it over the years with the UFC especially, but now you're seeing Bellator again start to travel a lot. Like, you'll go to an event in Europe, right, and you stack the card full of European fighters, thinking, okay, well, these are the fighters from around here they want to see, and the fans go, hey, thank you, but like, I've seen this dude fight 10 times for Cage Warriors on his way up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I've seen this dude. I want to see some of those guys I watch on TV. I want to see him live in person. So bring me some of that. So it's such a hard balance to find. But look, if I know those Irish fans, I think they're still going to bring the energy. They make it special every single time out there. So I think it is a little bit head scratchy. You'd like to have an Irish fighter in the main event if you could, or the co-main event, but it's still two quality matchups. Pedro Carvalho, Jeremy Kennedy, that's a quality matchup as well. The title fight. So I think they're still going to bring it. I'm looking forward to it, and I love the European shows. That means it's on during the day. You know what I mean? So you can catch it early in the day.
Brother. Good. Now I can tell my wife, hey, go take the kids in the other room. I got to work.
Gotta work. I gotta watch Bellator during the day. I gotta watch UFC at night. I mean, what do you want me to do?
Start at 9 a.m. I'll be done probably around 4 or 5. All right, like I'm working today.
What do you want me to do?
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing to do. But I bought her a Tesla though, so hopefully she's happy.
Yeah, fancy.
Yeah. What I gotta say about these Ireland cards though is like I think my favorite part. I mean, they're set up for failure to a degree. They're always putting Peter Queeley and then putting them against like killers, right? Like they want. And so the last two Bellator cards, Peter Queeley came up a little bit short, and he's just a fun fighter, everybody. But at least he's on the card. And if Showtime does not show his full walkout, I am striking. I am going to revolt, and I'm going to personally send a nicely worded email to Bellator saying you have to show Zombie in its entirety in his walkout, because there is no greater walkout, maybe aside from Matt Hughes's walkout back in the day, better than Peter Queeley in Ireland.
I completely agree with you, right? I mean, a lot of fans, of course, will think about Zombie from the Cranberries as the song for the Korean Zombie, which is cool in its own right as well. But this is on a different level, right? This is not just a good track to a fun fighter in Korean Zombie. I mean, this is, when you think about the meaning of the lyrics and what it means to that community, it really is passionate, and the way the fans just belt out every single word. It's
giving me chills cool. Actually right now thinking about it.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it as well. It's like, oh man, yeah, I think Showtime knows. Fortunately, I think that they're aware. I believe they'll have this thing shown in its entirety.
If they don't, we're going to start running production for Showtime. All right. But anybody who doesn't know the backstory, I'm going to probably not say it accurately, but why it is so powerful in Ireland, it has to do with the Civil War going on in Ireland back in the day, and 2 young children were killed by a bomb And that song is about those two children going to like pick up something for their mother and getting blown up by a bomb. And that's why there's this like it's such a meaningful song in Ireland. And then when they sing that song, and if you know the meaning behind it, watching this crowd sing it to their countryman, their hero coming out, it is so amazing. Like I've probably watched it dozens of times just because it's awesome.
It is. It's among the best walkouts in all of the sport, man. I mean, in all of combat sports, you've got some iconic tracks and some iconic venues. But as you said, when you add just the passion of the fans and the meaning of the song and doing it there, it's pretty damn incredible. If you haven't seen it, yeah, it's worth tuning in this weekend just to catch that. I mean, if you watch no MMA other than that and you've never seen it, like, go see it.
Turn the fight
incredible.
off afterwards. I don't care. Watch the walkout.
That's all I wanted to see. Yeah, do it.
So actually, I said Matt Hughes back in the day, Country Boy Can't Survive, Peter Queally, Zombie Walkout. Which one? Which one for your money?
Oh, it's got to be Queally. Just because, I mean, look, there's some iconic walkouts, but that one just involves the crowd so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's tunes. You think about like when Vanderlei would always come out to Sandstorm, or Crow Cop coming out to Wild Boys. Well, like, there's certain tracks that you're like, oh, I know exactly as soon as I hear the music. Anderson Silva, Ain't No Sunshine, bro. I mean,
the DMX version of it,
bro. That is probably one of the most iconic, because it was so cool, because the whole arena goes dark. You know what I mean? All the screens are off. It's solid black. And then it's just that bass is pumping. And it's who turned out the lights? And that's when the lights come up and the screen comes on and Anderson's right there with the walkie. I mean, now I'm getting chills thinking about that. Those were iconic. I mean, Conor McGregor, of course. So there's those where it's so cool when you hear the first notes of a song and you know exactly who it is, and you've got that anticipation. I think it's cool when guys use a walkout track for their whole career so that it becomes a part of them. It's pretty neat. But again, all those, as iconic and amazing as they are, when you add in where the fight's taking place, what the songs means to the people that are singing it, it just amps things up to another level. It's one of the best in the game.
We'll end it there because, yes, I agree.
Max Holloway, Hawaiian kickboxer. That's another one, too. Ooh, Hawaiian kickboxer.
In BJ Penn, it was by the Hawaiian Superman for Ala A. That was an icon. He stopped using it very, very, very late in his career. But through his whole career, he used that Ala A song from the Hawaiian Superman, and that was a magical moment too. Moving forward, because I could literally talk walkouts.
Jose Aldo run this town tonight. Anybody time runs that, I think Jose Aldo would be.
And you know what? And the first time I heard that, and I think the first time he came out to that song was facing Uriah Faber in Sacramento, Uriah Faber's hometown, the first ever pay-per-view for WC, or what was it? What was the WFC? WEC. Yes. And he came out to that song, and I was like, this boy gonna make a statement tonight.
I think you're right about that, because it was like, I'm gonna run it because I'm in Uriah Faber's backyard, but who's gonna run this town? It's gonna be me. That was a statement. I think you're 100% right about that. Another one that just came to mind: Mark Hominick at UFC 129 in the Sky Dome. I think I think Rogers Center now, whatever it's called, but the big stadium show, and it was Diddy. I'm coming home, and like it. Because he's fighting in his backyard there. They got the come on, man. That's part of the show. That's the walk.
But like Bisping always came out to the woohoo.
Yeah,
and I was like, and the crowd came over, but I'm like, always like, I hate this song. But the whole crowd, especially when early in his career, when he only fought in England on those UFC cards, the whole crowd would do it. Like that was fun, man. That was a lot of fun.
Dan Hardy's walkout song, England Belongs to Me. I mean, that's a good. That was the punk music.
We should do a whole podcast on just walkouts one of these days.
Could just play the tracks and throw some walk-ins over it. It's part of the experience. It's really part of the experience. It's something you miss when you're watching on TV only, especially when they don't show them. I know why fans get frustrated because it's part of the experience.
Brock Lesnar, Enter Sandman.
Oh, that's a good one too. That's a good. Or even, hey, how about Cain Velasquez? Like, it was like the Mexican track, but it was all about like coming to the United States and being kicked out and coming back again and being kicked out.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that. I just thought it was mariachi music.
Yeah, but that's what made it even cool. My wife actually explained the lyrics to me. It was about like, hey, trying to come in and they kick us out. We try to come in again, and that kind of life. And it just
Well, his
Good. We
dad
get to
was a
talk all-
farmer in Yuma, Arizona, which is a border town
right.
close to San Diego. So,
That's right.
man,
amazing.
meaning I just learned something. That's why we call
Yep.
you the almanac around here. All right, we could talk this days. Let's just move
All
forward.
day.
We have said this on this show. Bang for your buck, bare knuckle fighting. I think it's $6.99, $3.99 a month. I forgot how much it was. Cheap $99 a month. How about we'll just say cheap $99 a month? And they hold usually 2 events a month. Plus, you have access to their complete library. It's really weird. You can only watch it on an app, though. Like, my app doesn't even work on my TV. I have to watch it on my iPad or my phone. But they had their Super Bowl this past weekend. It was Knuckle Mania 3. Headlined by some people that most of our fans might not know. It was an amazing fight. It was a back and forth fight, ended with a vicious knockout after he got knocked down. That's not what I'm here to talk about. First, let's talk about Greg Hardy saying that, he could beat pro boxers. He could do this, and he gets iced, unconscious.
Yeah,
in this fight.
He got touched up a little bit. I know there were a lot of people, if we're just being honest, that were happy to see it. I get it, man. Greg Hardy has apologized for his actions of the past and says, look, I'm a new man. I'm clean and sober now. I regret everything that I did. But for a lot of people, they just will never forgive him for, the things he did, the domestic battery that he did, and we're happy to see it. But it'll be interesting to see where Greg Hardy goes as an athlete because, as you said, he got to the UFC, clearly because of the big name and what was around him. But admitted, hey, look, learning mixed martial arts is tough, man. There's a whole lot to learn. And when you're starting late in life, even if you're, an A+ athlete, the way Greg Hardy is, I mean, when you achieve all pro status in the NFL, you are an A+ athlete. And obviously just a huge dude that used to have to cut down to make it to 265. But kind of admitted, look, it was just hard for me to learn the wrestling game late in life, hard for me to learn the kicking game. But if I can just use my hands, I'm going to be a savage. But, look, man, especially at heavyweight, anything can happen, and he got clipped. So be interested to see where Greg Hardy goes from here. He seems passionate about combat sports, but, this was a pretty devastating loss for him.
Devastating in many ways because it was a devastating knockout. I mean, he was unconscious, started to wake up, couldn't make the 10 count. And I saw Greg Hardy in his LFA days on an undercard of all places, live in the building. He was on an undercard of my one of my very, very good friends, top 10 Bellator fighter, Jaleel the Realist Willis, was headlining a championship fight for LFA in Dallas, Texas. Me and my wife, we flew down there to support Jaleel, and in like the last prelim fight, it was making his pro debut.
That was his final amateur fight. Because his pro debut was actually on the Contender Series, which a lot of people are like, why are you giving a Contender Series slot in his pro debut? But that was his final amateur fight. Yep.
Okay, making his final amateur fight in this massive, and I'm like, wait, hold on, Hardy, like and then I think he just spatched him in under 10 seconds and blasted this dude's head off.
Yeah, that was the highlight reel that got him on to the Contender Series. As an amateur, he went 3-0, 3 very, very fast knockouts, and then made his pro debut in the first season of the Contender Series. So, yeah, man, that a ride to the top very quickly that a lot of people were frustrated about. Ended with 3 consecutive losses in the UFC. Makes the switch over to bare knuckle and takes a loss here. We'll see. We'll see what he does. I mean, not a young guy at this point. Obviously, had an entire career in the UFC before he got here. So, I should say in the NFL before he got to combat sports. So we'll see what he does at this point. I was trying to find out what his age is exactly. 34 still, so not old, especially for a heavyweight. You can kind of stick around a little bit longer. But we'll see. Like I said, it's wild because every experience that I've ever had with Greg Hardy was positive. If you talk to those that have been around him, they'll tell you how hard he works. But, as I said, a lot of people will just never forgive him for his past. And, you can understand that position for sure.
Yeah. And he's got a legendary work ethic in that gym. So, which gained a lot of, praise from his teammates. So hopefully we see him back because, big guys that aren't scared to trade leather. I'm going to tune in.
I do that, and that dude is massive. Like I said, he is huge. So and powerful. So I think there's still a future there. I think it's just up to him. Can he take the losses? I mean, that's the frustrating part. Is like, are you okay? Knowing that you were at the top, you were all pro NFL. Are you okay with going out there and losing and having people dance over it? To be honest with you, and celebrate your losses and laugh at you. I mean, that's the reality. Is whether or not he wants to continue to do that.
And his opponent did the Tank Abbott over him.
Yep.
Man, if you guys are listening to this, Tank Abbott, back in the day when he knocked out people, he would act like he was stiff standing up, and Hardy's opponent did that to him, standing over him. And I was like, oh, man, fall from grace. But hopefully we see him back, because I want to see him trade leather with other people. I'm willing to not forget, but forgive. So, hopefully I wish him Hardy nothing but success in the future. Co-main event. This is what I want to talk about. Knuckle Mania 3. Co-main event. Diego, the Nightmare, or the Dream. Is he back to Nightmare, by the way?
Right, he's bracing the Nightmare. Embracing the Nightmare.
Okay, he's back to Diego, the Nightmare Sanchez. He was the Dream Sanchez there for a little bit. But he, in the co-main event of bare knuckle boxing, took on former WBA champion Austin Trout. It went the way you think it probably would have went. Okay. Austin Trout pieces up Diego Sanchez, who is tough as nails, right? And has always been a brawler, not necessarily a technical boxer. So this fight went exactly as you think it would have been. Diego Sanchez taking heavy damage, heavy cuts. It does get stopped by a 5th round TKO due to doctor stoppage because of a cut. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the controversy. If anybody follows Diego Sanchez, his Instagram accounts, he comes out after the fight and says, I consider this fight a win. And you're like, what? What is going on? And he says that Trout was overly greased, not only on his face, but he felt it on his neck and his shoulders, which gave him the inability to clinch up, while also claiming that they never put grease on Diego. They never greased his face at all. Now, he then says, I hope this fight is going to be overturned, and I will be contacting my lawyer. John Morgan, just take it from there. Diego Sanchez, take it from there.
Look, I love Diego Sanchez. I mean, this dude is an absolute legend of the sport. I worried about him in this fight, in this matchup particularly, because it was tough. I mean, to come to bare knuckle boxing at this point in his career is one thing, but to do it against Austin Trout, man, this was a huge step up in competition, and so I was a little bit concerned. As you said, fight went kind of like I was afraid it might go. Now, from the beginning, Diego Sanchez had openly said, openly in interviews, like not even suggesting it. He was just saying, look, I'm going to walk forward. I'm going to put him in the clinch, and I'm going to beat the hell out of him. Just laying out exactly what the game plan was. And so if this is true, that he wasn't ever greased, that he never got anything. And to be honest, I haven't gone back and reviewed the tape to have a chance yet, because I've been so busy since he made these claims. But we need to go watch the tape, because if he wasn't greased at all, that would be a little bit shocking, because, I mean, the whole point of that grease is obviously to kind of help things kind of slide off a little bit and not bust up immediately and cut. Cuts are such a big part of BKFC, but he's also got some footage there where it does seem the cut man is kind of rubbing the back a little bit and rubbing the neck a little bit, which really shouldn't be done. So I don't know. I've got to go back and review the tape in its entirety and see these claims to see what happens. I don't know that it's going to be overturned. I mean, it would be up to the New Mexico Commission to make a decision there. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm not sure if it's worth necessarily the legal fees it's going to take to get this done. So I don't know. Diego Sanchez was getting some rough advice for several years. Hopefully he's got some good people advising him now. I mean, look, he's a warrior. His status as a legend is unquestioned, and the result of this fight wasn't going to change any of that. So getting it overturned, other than from a personal perspective, I don't think does anything to enhance his career legacy. We know who Diego Sanchez is. So I just think it's going to be a question of, if he contacts his attorney and the attorney says, look, it's going to take me, this many billable hours to try to get this done. Man, I think BKFC is paying him pretty well. Keep that money in the bank, man. Keep that money in the bank. The result of the fight isn't worth it, unless you think there was some really, shady stuff going on here, and you want to make sure it's on the record. And I can't understand that. Diego Sanchez is a man of principle, so it may be worth it to him just to prove that one way or the other.
So this is a question that I don't know. I assume the answer is BKFC has the same cut man, grease man, kind of like UFC for almost every fight.
Right.
When we go to boxing, high level boxing, they bring in their own. They bring in their own grease person, their own cut person, who's usually the same person. And you'll see them in like Stitch Duran. He's with he's
Klitschko.
with the highest
Mm.
he's with Klitschko. I think he was even with he may or may not have been with Tyson Fury, right?
I think
Maybe.
you're right.
Yeah. And so they're part of these guys' camps and they come and go. I'm anxious to see, and I got to go back and watch because I only heard about this morning.
Me too.
About the Diego Sanchez controversy. And knowing that this guy is a former world WBC world boxing champion, world champion, he might have his own people. And you know what? I don't know, but I'm not going to say where there's smoke, there's fire, but yeah, I mean, Diego lays out a kind of a decent case, and that's coming from Diego Sanchez, that he's playing out a decent case. So I reserve the right to pass any judgment until I go back and watch it. And thank goodness I can, because for that cheap 99, I can go back and watch it in my app. But I'm anxious to see whether it was a world champion bringing in his own cut man and grease man, or if it was the one provided from BKFC.
Yeah, I got to. I'm the same as you, right? So I was working late Saturday night on the UFC, and then on Sundays I try to unplug on Sundays, man. Keep that for the family. You know, they are nice enough to understand that I'm gone a lot and tied up for the sport a lot, so I try to keep Sundays for the family. So just as you, kind of when I woke up this morning to get ready to do the show, just saw it. So probably the first thing I'm gonna do as soon as we get done recording is to go pull up the BKFC app and watch it in its entirety, because as you said, just looking at Diego's claims, he does make a pretty good case where you say that what's going on here? That shouldn't be right. So definitely worth following that story, and that's probably the first thing I'm gonna do as soon as we get done is go watch it frame by frame and see what I can see in there.
Coming up this Friday, another one championship on Amazon Prime, the return of Lineker, and he's coming. What was? Refresh my memory, because this fight had been booked and canceled a couple times, and there was controversy in the first fight. I think it was a downed knee, or I don't know.
It was a low blow. It was a low blow, and Lineker's cup was actually destroyed from the low blow, and he was writhing in pain and couldn't continue. So it was a no contest. And yeah, it's two Brazilians. It's the veteran in Lineker. It's kind of the younger version of Fabricio Andrade, who's making his way up. And Fabricio is not afraid to talk a little bit. He's stylish. He comes in with the dyed hair and he talks a little trash. I'll have an interview out with them later this week. But it's kind of this heavily anticipated rematch because it's very, they were exciting. I mean, they're knockout artists, so it was going to be exciting regardless. But then you add in a little touch of controversy as well. They're bringing it back. And, you know, it's kind of one of those things where Lineker said he couldn't continue. And Fabricio Andrade was like, could you though? Could you not continue? Or was it because I was having more success early on than you thought I was going to have, and you saw this as a way to get out, to recoup, and come back on another day? Controversy even forward, Lineker missed weight ahead of time, so he was stripped of the title anyway, so it was only Andrade that could win it. So just there was so much going on, and now they get to run it back.
Underneath the as you peel the layers of this onion back, I didn't even remember any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And this fight was booked a couple times and canceled, correct?
Yeah, it's been rescheduled a little bit as well. So it's finally happening. It's Saturday morning in Bangkok, but that means it airs in North America Friday night on Amazon Prime Video. I'm telling you, the One Championship is coming to the U.S. for the first time in May. I'm hoping to be there that week. It's in Colorado. So if you're in the Colorado area, get your tickets now. The First Bank Center, I believe it's called, out in Broomfield, where the UFC is visited for. Cannot wait for that. But in the meantime, dude, I think they're in a better position they've ever been. We can now actually see these fights live on Friday nights on Amazon Prime Video, which, I mean, come on, man. Everybody's got Amazon Prime Video now. While it's a pay service, it might as well be free because you're using it anyway. Everybody's got Prime. I cannot wait to see this main event. The return of Danielle Kelly on there as well. She is an awesome grappler for, again, Jiu-Jitsu aficionados like myself. I got to call a little bit of her action at Fury Professional Grappling before she got snatched up by One Championship. She is incredible and just getting better. So looking forward to that one as well.
Is Mikey Musumeci on this card?
He's not on this card. He's got he is booked, but I can't remember what the date is offhand. But it's not this card. But I
read this past week that he was booked for another championship.
I think it's that May card, and I think man, they put Rodtang on there. They're putting that May card is stacked. They are trying to make an impression with their U.S. debut. So I can't
Well,
wait
then
for
you
that.
better get me media credential passes for that,
Wouldn't it
because
be?
I don't even know who
Wouldn't
to call.
I got you. I got you covered. I was saying, wouldn't it be great if the Grizz were in town for the Nuggets that week or something? How
Yeah.
great would that be to see that? I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah,
That
it's
would be pretty
playoff
awesome.
time. It's actually probably we'd have to be in the NBA Finals to be still going at that point, which I hope we are. I hope I don't have to make it. But if we're not in the NBA Finals, I'm coming. I'm
Love
gonna
it.
get me press passes, and I'm gonna be there, and I'll be tweeting up a storm to my 150 followers.
Done. May 5th, Broomfield, Colorado. I want to pull this fight card out. See what they got. Demetrius Johnson, Adriano Moraes, Rod Tang's my wife. If you've never seen Rod Tang as a striker, he's unbelievable. Mikey Musumeci's on there. Stamp Fair, Texas on there. Sage Northcutt is back. I mean,
That's the return in Northcutt.
the return of Sage North. I'm telling you, they're stacking this card up. So I hate they got a card this Friday. We're talking about May, but look, that May card is going to be something special. So put it on your calendars.
All right, it's definitely on my calendar. But what a fight that should be on everybody's calendar. And if they're not a fan of this sport. And I want to smack them upside the head. 2 weeks away. We were only 2 weeks away from John Jones, Cyril Gahn. But I want to talk about Bo Nickal making his UFC debut. And he's on the main card of a John Jones headline fight. How big is that? And how much stock are they putting into Bo Nickal to put him on a main card of probably the biggest pay-per-view of the year in his debut UFC fight? That is huge.
I love it. I love the gutsiness of making the move. You know, I mean, Bo Nickal embraces the spotlight, of course, to say the least. And the thing is, the UFC
called out Hosmot.
I know it's insane, man. And the thing is, you know, the UFC has all of the metrics. You know, obviously since Dana White's Contender Series, you know, they get to see the number of, you know, we don't get to see those numbers, but they get to see them. And then they put those social media clips out, and they get to see what it does, and they get to see on Fight Pass, you know, exactly what people are watching and who's pulling what. So look, if they're putting him on the main card, it's because they see the buzz that's surrounding him. And trust me, I know that they are, because I know, you know, obviously I got to late last year call the first collegiate wrestling event on UFC Fight Pass. They're starting to put an investment and really increase the partnership with collegiate wrestling because of athletes like Bo Nickal and what they're capable of doing. But this is, I love it. This is going to be one of those weird situations, right, where if it succeeds and it works, the UFC is going to be praised. If for some reason, you know, Jamie Pickett's able to pull off the upset here, you know, people are going to go, oh, here was the UFC trying to hype up this guy again when there's so many more deserving athletes that should have been on the main card. And I get that. You know, some people may complain about it, but I love this move from the UFC. Bo Nickal looks like the real deal. He wants to be the real deal. You talk to anybody around him, they'll say he's the real deal. And he's like, dude, give me the biggest challenges right away. As you said, who's calling out Hamzat for their debut? It's incredible. I love this spot. I mean, as big as 285 is and a title fight, like, I love the fact that they put Bo Nickal on the main card.
And if they're saying this guy isn't deserving, then they're nuts. In Dana White's Contender Series, he comes off a first-round victory. Then they say not good enough. Even though it was tremendously so impressive, Dana White says, I should, but people will go crazy. He literally said that. People will go crazy if I just give this guy a contract after one fight. We need to see him again. And they put him up against Donovan Beard, CFFC middleweight world champion of CFFC. And he takes out Donovan Beard, who Donovan Beard is just a gritty vet, tough as nails, impossible to finish. He went the distance with Raheem Forrest, who just knocks everybody's heads out. He went the distance with Raheem Forrest, right? And Bo Nickal took him out in under a minute.
Unbelievable.
So he is deserving.
100% deserving. And oh, by the way, can we talk about the NCAA wrestling titles? Oh, by the way, can we talk about the national champ? I mean, this guy has the pedigree. And again, you talk to everybody. It's so incredible to talk to the people that train with the American Top Team, because, you know, you think about the class and the quality of athletes that come through American Top Team over the years. But when that little sparkle gets in their eyes, when you're like, so is this Bo Nickal the real deal? And they're just like, yeah, like he's absolutely the real deal, you know, like they don't need to say that, because it's not like they're trying to hype. It's like coaches or training partners, whatever. It's not their job to hype the guy up. They, you know, it doesn't impact their career at all. And they're just, to a man, they all go, no, this dude's the real deal. So I'm loving it. And you're right. That performance, you know, a lot of people might not know, but obviously we've gotten to see a lot of Donovan Beard up close just to see how tough he is. and to just run through him the way he did. Absolutely unbelievable. So I'm excited for Bo Nickal and what he can accomplish moving forward in his career. He's this wrestling base, man. I'm so happy to see now that these wrestlers are really embracing mixed martial arts as a potential future career opportunity, because that wasn't the case for a long time. And man, this dude looks like he's going to be next level.
I ref Donovan Beard's title, CFFC title, world title fight where he won the CFFC middleweight title, and he was getting grinded out by a dominant wrestler who tried to put him in every submission in the book. And Donovan Beard was that tough and that durable and that gritty and that experience that he was able to get out of every single one before, in the 4th round, flipping the script and coming out with a submission victory. I've actually reffed Donovan Beard on multiple occasions, and his fights are the same. So when Bo Nickal originally locked up that early triangle, and I said, he ain't going to get this early. Donovan is too tough. And then Donovan Beard was tapping before it even seemed like it was cinched all the way in. And then it was in that moment I said, Bo Nickal is the real freaking deal. And then he calls out Hazmat.
Yeah, 100%. I was the same way. It was funny, obviously, with my CFFC background, when Donovan Beard got tapped up, a lot of the media was like, all right, so is this like a legit test, or is like, what do you think? And I'm like, well, listen, and I was purely honest. I said, look, I still favor Bo Nickal just because I feel like he's a little bit of a cut above, but I'm telling you right now, Donovan Beard's going to at least test him a little bit. You're not going to see somebody that'll go in there and be overwhelmed by the moment, that'll go in there and wilt, that'll go in there, you won't see that. And then for Bo Nickal to go in there and just run right through him as well, I said, oh my, yep, this dude is the real deal. If there was any question, he's the real deal. Now we're going to get to see it again, and at T-Mobile Arena. But look, Bo Nickal, he's fought in front of that. It's like there's not going to be nerves of being in a packed arena. He's been in packed arenas during his wrestling career. I mean, the Penn State program. So I'm so excited for this debut. It's going to be something worth watching for sure. And again, I'll just say it again. I love the fact that the UFC put it on the main card, because it may upset a lot of people. There may be people on the prelims that say, man, I've been around. This dude's making his UFC debut. Why does he get the spot? But I'm telling you, sometimes you have these special athletes that deserve the spot, and I think this is one of them.
Is this one of the most hyped, if not the most hyped debuts in UFC history? Like, I knew Conor McGregor came in with a lot of fanfare, but it wasn't like this.
The only one you might, it definitely wasn't. Obviously he built it real quick. I mean, it's a crazy comparison to make, but you
Brock
may say
Lesnar?
like Brock Lesnar. That's the one I was going to make. I was like, it may be a crazy comparison because it's, he was coming from a different world and WWE superstar and all that. But honestly, I'd put the hype level for somebody making their UFC debut equal with Brock Lesnar.
I would too. I can't think of anybody, and I'm not even going to put that in the same category because Brock Lesnar was already a global superstar. So that's why the hype was there, not because of what is the potential. Even though Brock Lesnar exceeded everybody's expectations right away, became world champion, knocking out Randy Couture, the pure potential hype train that is Bo Nickal is amazing. I'm here for it. I think this kid has huge things in his future because you said it right. He doesn't need to get in there and find himself. He doesn't. He's already found himself.
He's ready to go. And I mean, you just talk to the guy. I mean, it's, obviously his athletic track record speaks for itself, right? But you just get in there and talk with the guy and you see like just, how much he understands the game, how confident he is, how much it's not false bravado or anything like that. It's just somebody that knows what they're capable of. And, grew up, his mom was like a professional boxer. So, I mean, they're all in the fight game and he's just been doing this his whole life. And he's a special athlete, man. So I'm excited about this. And that's not to write off Jamie Pickett, man. Jamie Pickett is a tough guy and he's going to come in there and give it his all. He's not coming here to be anybody's stepping stone. But this is a special moment for Bo Nickal. I'm excited for it.
What everybody's excited for is John Jones, Cyril Gahn. But guess what? I'm going to save this for next week.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to just throw it out there right now when we got a whole nother week ahead, because guess what? If we talk about it all this week, what are we going to talk about next week? Well, the same thing, but there's tons to talk about. But I want to save it because next week we are dedicating the entire show, for the most part, to John Jones's return to the UFC at heavyweight, going for the world title that is being held by Cyril Gahn right now. Amazing that is going to happen. Don't chime in, John Morgan, because I know you want to, but we're saving it for next week.
Nah, we'll definitely save it for next week, but it's just crazy, right? Because I'm looking at the rest of this main card. Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, Jeff Neal, Shavkat Rakhmonov, another name that a lot of people are excited about. Jalen Turner versus Dan Hooker, and then, of course, Bo Nickal versus Jamie Pickett. It's crazy because that main card is so stacked, but rightfully so. As you said, we're going to spend all our time talking about it. Everybody's going to spend all their time talking about it next week. John Jones versus Cyril Gane is as big as it gets. But that is a stacked main card right there, man. And then prelims, you got Cody Garbrandt there. I mean, there's some names,
Garbrandt
man.
on the prelims?
Prelims. He's the featured prelim. Cody Garbrandt versus Julio Arce. That could be a great fight. Derek Brunson is back versus Drickus. Oh.
The UFC does that to entice you to buy the pay-per-view. So they put like a banger as the main fight on the prelim.
The featured prelim.
In the past, it's worked on me.
Yeah, it's such a real thing that they do, and they admit it. It's like they want to get that guy. It's like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna watch the prelims. I don't know if I'm gonna pay for the pay-per-view tonight. Like, it's a little expensive, but I'm gonna watch the prelims that are free on ESPN Plus, and then that final prelim's an absolute banger, and you're like, all right, they got me. I'm buying this pay-per-view. Let's go. I can't miss this. Let's keep it going. So that's exactly why that fight's there. That's gonna be a banger.
You think Cody Garbrandt can return to form?
Boy, I hope so. I really do, because, man, when he is on form, he's had some bad luck with his health and some fight results and all that. But when that dude is in form, he is so fun to watch, man. So I hope so. I really do. It's tough because, once your knees start giving you trouble, that's one thing. And then once your chin goes out, like, it just doesn't come back. So, we'll see. I know the guy's given everything to it, man. I know he's as dedicated as they come, and he still believes in himself, and he's sacrificing everything to get it done. And I hope he does, man, because, like I said, that dude is as entertaining as it gets when he's on point.
Yeah. I mean, what could have been with Cody Garbrandt, especially coming off that Dominic Cruz win where he just looked absolutely fantastic. And then he went against the EPOing TJ Dillashaw. And then it's kind of all downhill from there, but hopefully he returns to form. And I love this is like the nerdy in me. I even know what his tattoo is. He's got the gun sticking out of his back. Like that goes right like where his fight shorts are. Yeah. Or is it in the front? I can't remember where it is, but he's got a gun somewhere.
Crazy. He's got all kinds of ink on there.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, hey everybody, make sure to check us out next week. But before we get there, I know you're going to be in the Apex Center, but anything else this weekend?
No, I got my man Rob Haydak coming to town for some meetings with the UFC, so I'm excited to see him. Obviously, some
president of CFFC, if anybody doesn't know.
Yeah, we at CFFC we took a little bit of a hiatus in the opening months here because Rob was kind of working on some business plans and some new deals for CFFC, and we got a stacked schedule coming up. So he's coming out here this week, and I'm excited to go meet with him and the UFC and kind of lay out the schedule for the rest of the year with grappling and some other things as well. So excited for that. But other than that, for the weekend, it'll just be the fights and then getting ready for next week, UFC 285. I love the Vegas swings. I know people, some, there's some people out there that are like, they got to get rid of these UFC Apex shows. They got to get the show on the road. I'm just gonna be honest. I love it. Apex is 15 minutes from my house. I don't have to get on the road anywhere, and I can go down there and cover the event. So I love it, but it all leads to next week, T-Mobile Arena. Oh, can't wait for UFC 285.
I am.
How about you?
Well, I don't know. I'm chasing kids around, man. Like I'm in the fire, man. I'm in that. Like I got 2 kids. 4. Well, he just turned 4. We had his 4th birthday party this weekend. It was so much fun. But man, I'm still hungover from just chasing 4-year-olds around for like 3 hours straight at a party. It was obnoxious, but
did you at least get to watch the All-Star game last night? Did you enjoy that a little bit?
No, because my son was scared of the dark, trying to put him to bed. I ordered a pizza because I wanted to watch it. So like by the time I finally got to my pizza, it was cold. But such things that you are glad to do as a father. So I'm more than happy to do it. This weekend, I do have a Memphis Grizzlies game Saturday, return from the All-Star break. We got a game Saturday, finishing out the second half of our season. Exciting. John Moran and the young and hungry and just the most exciting team in basketball, Memphis Grizzlies. I'm lucky I get to watch them day in, day out on the court. But follow my man, John Morgan, on Twitter, John Morgan _MMA. Again, E_Mac Life is mine. Help me boost them followers. So it's going to be easier for John Morgan to get me credential passes to these big shows. Anyways, with that, you know what we're breaking down next week. We don't got to say it again. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.